Dear friends, I'm going to explain accounting and auditing from paper 2 of Commerce UGC NTA NET set. Meaning of accounting. Accounting is the process of systematically recording, measuring and communicating information about financial transaction. This is the process in which financial transactions of an organization are recorded in a proper manner so as to measure the income earned by the business entity in a proper manner, and it is actually done for a particular period of time, say for example 1 year. In India, accounting year commences from 1st April to 1st April of every year and ends on 31st March every year. This year is also called financial year. Financial year is the year for all purposes relating to measurement of business profits, payment of taxes, and closing of accounts of various entities in India. Now, the concept of accounting, there are totally 9 concepts of accounting. First one, business entity concept. According to this concept, business is different from its owners. Then money measurement concept is there. Accounting is carried out, or accounts are maintained in order to measure money made by the organization. Then going concern concept. Men may come, men may go, but the business concern will run forever. This is the concept of maintaining accounts. Then accounting period concept. Accounting is maintained for a definite period of time. Then cost concept, to ascertain cost of various elements involved in running the business is one of the motive behind maintaining accounts. Then realization concept, and then accrual concept is there. Then matching concept, every debit should have equal amount of credit. This is called matching concept. Then duality aspect is there. So these are the various concepts of accounting. We will see the accounting conventions. Accounting conventions are the principles which guide or which mold the accounting system. First one, convention of materiality, then convention of conversion, then convention of consistency, then convention of full disclosure. An organization should always should not conceal any information relating to its financial transactions during a particular period of time. This is what this convention says. Then the accounting systems which are prevalent in India, not only in India, in every part of the world, we can find different systems of accounting. They are classified into 2 broad categories. First one, single entry system of accounting. Second one, double entry system of accounting. Single entry system of accounting means an accounting system which does not have any proper rules and regulations. Here, rules and regulations are not followed. People who maintain their accounts under single entry system, whatever they want to record, they will record. Whatever they want to omit, they will omit. It will not have the matching concept or debit and credit principle and all. They will maintain records as they wish. Sometimes only cash transactions are recorded. Sometimes only sales transactions are recorded. A few books are maintained and few books are not maintained under this system. So any system which does not conform to double entry system of accounting is called single entry system. The next one, double entry system of accounting. Under this system, there will be perfect debit and credit for each and every transaction, every business transaction carried out, and it has definite rules and regulations. It has own set of principles, and everything has to be done according to the rules and regulations, accounting rules. In double entry system of accounting, the accounts are classified into 3 categories. Number 1, real account. Number 2, personal account. Number 3, nominal account. Some people say personal account is first one, then real account, then nominal account is the next one. All the transactions relating to real things, which are physical structure or which we can touch and feel, like building, cash, gold, silver, and whatever is there, real things are there. All transactions relating to these kind of items are classified as real accounts. All kinds of transactions which in which persons are involved, it may be natural persons or artificial persons, like it may be human beings or business entities. If in any transaction some business entity or human being is involved, its transactions are recorded following personal account rules. And nominal account rules are there. Whatever transactions in which real and personal accounts are not involved. Certain things are there which do not have physical shape and structure, like expenses, incomes, profits, gains, and all. All these items come under nominal account. For each account, there is a rule which is called. These rules are called golden rules of accounting. Golden rules of accounting are mentioned here. First one is the rule for real account. Wherever real account, wherever first rule is debit the receiver and credit the giver. This is used for recording personal account transactions. In whichever transaction personal accounts are involved, in such case this rule will be applied. Then second one, debit what comes in and credit what goes out. This principle or this rule is applied in case of real accounts. Then debit all expenses and losses, credit all incomes and gains. This rule is applied for nominal accounts. Then next topic is the partnership. Unlike there are many forms of business entities, like sole traders, partnership forms, joint stock companies. That is in joint stock companies also, limited companies and private companies, public companies, like that. So each type of business entity has its own pros and consequences. Here, let us see the important aspects of partnerships. Whenever a sole trader finds it difficult and he wants to expand his business with other people, the next option available is partnership firms. Partnership firms have some advantages over a sole trading concern. A sole trading concern will have only one person looking after all the business activities, whereas a partnership firm will have multiple persons, and even capital contribution will also be multiple here. Everything is shared between the partners. So likewise, the profits or losses are also shared between the partners. In this way, partnership provides a better platform for doing business than sole trading concern. The concept of partnership firm, first one is capital. It is the amount of money required to start a business, which is contributed by the partners according to the common understanding. That agreement or understanding between these partners is called partnership deed. So partnership deed is the basic document which regulates or which governs the partnership firm's business. Then profit or loss sharing ratios. When two or three people join together and they carry out some business, there should be certainly some ratios mentioned in which they have to share their profits or losses. Otherwise, there will be confusion in the future. Then interest on capital. This is guaranteed on partner's capital contributed. Whenever a partner contributes a certain amount of capital to the partnership firm, that is money contributed by him, will fetch him some amount of interest which is fixed in the partnership deed. Then interest on drawings. Drawings means amount withdrawn by a partner for his private use. It may be cash or it may be in the form of goods or services. Whenever he withdraws some amount of goods or services or cash from the partnership firm, he will be charged some interest. This will also be mentioned in the partnership deed. Then salary. Salary is paid to an active partner who takes daily work. Whenever a partner, there will be several types of partners in the partnership firm: sleeping partner, working partner, or sometimes there will be some managing partners will be there. If a partner is actively involved in a partnership firm, he is entitled for salary. This salary will also be fixed by the partnership deed. The next one, accounting for partnership. A partnership has a different organization than a sole proprietorship or a company. So accounting for a partnership firm has some of its own peculiarities, like the capital account or profit and loss account or profit and loss appropriation account. The capital account in a partnership firm is prepared in two ways. First one is on the basis of fixed capital. Second one on the basis of fluctuating capital. If the capitals are fixed, then only the capital account is prepared, current account is not prepared. If the capitals are fluctuating, then only capital account is required, no current account is opened. If the partners opt for fixed capital, then current account is open. Whatever profit or loss they get and other incomes and expenses they get, they are all charged to their current account. Current account is charged or credited with whatever incomes and gains they get, whereas the capital account will remain stable or constant throughout the period. Then profit and loss appropriation account is there. This account is prepared to appropriate, that is to distribute the profit made by the partnership firm among the partners in the agreed ratio. What happens is the profit calculated by preparing trading profit and loss account is transferred to this account, to the credit side of this account. After transferring the profit to the credit side of this account, all the expenses and all the expenses relating to the partners are debited to this account, and all the gains relating to the partners are credited to this account. Final profit or loss is distributed according to their agreed ratio, which is again credited to their capital accounts or current accounts as the case may be. Then contents of a partnership deed. As I said earlier, partnership deed is the basic document which is prepared to govern or to regulate the business of a partnership firm. A partnership deed will contain certain important aspects. Number one, nature of business. What kind of business the partnership is going to carry out. The next one, duration of partnership firm. How long the partnership is going to exist. Say for example 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, all this will be mentioned in the partnership deed. The name of the firm. What should be the name of the firm, like ABC Enterprises, XYZ Trading Concern, like that. Then capital. How much capital each partner has to contribute and what will be the total capital of the partnership firm. Then share of partners in profit or losses. This ratio will also be mentioned in the partnership deed as 1:1:1, that is equal ratio, or some partner getting higher ratio for his nature of work, or some partner getting lesser share. It depends upon the understanding, contribution of capital made by them and various other factors. Then bank account of the firm. Every firm should have a bank account. With which bank they have to open the account and who has to operate the account, who will be the signatories for the account, all mentioned in the deed. Then books of accounts. What are the books of accounts to be maintained and who has to maintain, who will be the person responsible for maintenance of books of accounts are mentioned in the deed. Then powers of partners. Various powers of partners, their duties, responsibilities and all also mentioned in the partnership deed. Retirement or expulsion of partners. Retirement means when a partner voluntarily wants an exit from the partnership firm, then he can opt for retirement of partnership. Then expulsion of partner due to misconduct or any other reason, a partner may be expelled from the partnership firm. So that is called expulsion or removal of partner. Death of a partner. The terms and conditions relating to death of a partner, whenever a partner is died while carrying out business, when the business is ongoing, then how he has to be settled, how his estate has to be settled, how the people or relatives how to be paid in case of death of a partner has to be clearly mentioned in the deed. Then dissolution of the partnership firm, when and how the partnership firm has to be dissolved will be mentioned in the partnership deed. Then settlement of disputes. In case of dispute between the partners or in case of disputes between the firm and other people, that is outsiders, how the settlement has to be carried out will be mentioned in the partnership deed. Then valuation of goodwill. Goodwill means good name or reputation a business enjoys due to its profit making ability. It is valued during various circumstances, when there is a change in profit sharing ratio, or when new partner is admitted, when a person retires or dies, when a partnership firm is sold as a going concern. In all these cases, a partnership goodwill has to be valued. Goodwill is an intangible asset. That's why it is required to be valued separately. Its valuation is done on the basis of average profits, then on the basis of annuity method, or sometimes on the basis of super profit method, or on the basis of capitalization method. On the basis of average profits, what is done is previous years average of profits is calculated. For example, 3 years average, 4 years average, 5 years average are not calculated, and it is multiplied by a factor called purchase of years to find out the value of goodwill under average profit method. Then annuity basis is that annuity table value is used to find out the value of partnership firm's goodwill. Then super profit method, the profit above the average profit in organization is called partnership firm is called super profit. This super profit is multiplied by a certain number of years or a factor. So by that way we get goodwill under this method. Then capitalization method. The super profit is capitalized in order to arrive at the value of goodwill. The next one, corporate accounting. The next stage or next thing which happens when a partnership grows, or when people with better capital position, or people with higher financial commitment, or people with more amount of funds think of doing business, what they do is they go for a corporate setup or a joint stock company. For joint stock companies, the accounting system differs. It has an entirely different accounting system. Corporate accounting is a special branch of accounting which deals with accounting for companies, that is limited companies. It may be limited, it may be a private limited company or a public limited company. Preparation of their final accounts and cash flow statements, analysis and interpretation of company's financial results, and accounting for specific events like amalgamation, absorption, preparation of consolidated balance sheet, etc. are explained. Then we'll see some questions. In accrual basis or mercantile basis of accounting, the financial effect of transaction is recorded in the books as and when they occur, or on the basis of actual receipt and payment of cash, on confirmation of orders but before the delivery of goods, and then all the above. These are the four options given here. Actually, in accrual basis, the mercantile basis, in accrual basis, as and when the transaction occurs, then only it is recorded. So option A is the right answer. The next question is accelerated depreciation method is also called sum of years digit method, and then insurance policy method, annuity method, or fixed installment method. The right answer is sum of years digit method. Then next question, consider the following accounting concepts: business entity concept, going concern concept, dual aspect concept, money measurement concept. Which of the above accounting concepts are generally called fundamental accounting concepts? 1, 2, and 4 is the first option. Second option 1, 2, and 3. Then third option 1, 2, and 3. Fourth option is 2 and 4. Actually, 1, 2, and 4 are considered as the fundamental accounting concepts. So option A is the right answer here. Then next one, the information provided by financial accounting system is significant for smooth, orderly, efficient conduct of business, not sufficient for smooth, orderly, efficient conduct of business. Both A and B. So here, information is provided is significant as well as it is sufficient for smooth and orderly conduct of business. So the answer will be A and B, both. So D, option D is the answer. Next question is, which accounting standard deals with intangible assets? AS 26 deals with intangible assets. So option D will be the right answer for this question. The next one, capital redemption reserve can be utilized by the company only for redemption of shares, distribution of dividend, issue of fully paid bonus shares, all of the above. So the right answer is the company can go for issue of fully paid bonus shares with the help of that money. So option C is the right answer. The next one, a very important component of management accounting is financial accounting, contract accounting, cost accounting, and management auditing. Actually, it is financial accounting. Financial accounting data is used for arriving at various ratios, preparing various statements and all in management accounting. Then a very important component of management accounting is also cost accounting. The answer is C, cost accounting. Then in case of fixed capital accounts, following are recorded in the capital accounts of a partner: balance of capital in the beginning of the year, fresh capital introduced during the year, permanent withdrawal of excess capital or closing balance of a capital, income tax of partner. Select the correct answer using the codes given below: 1 and 2, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. See, a partner in a partner's capital account, what and all is recorded is the balance of capital in the beginning of the year, fresh capital introduced by him, and then permanent withdrawal excess of capital amount, whatever is withdrawn by him is also recorded. So option C will be the right answer here. Thank you for thank you for watching. Meaning of auditing. Auditing means examination or inspection of various books of accounts by an auditor, followed by physical checking of evidence or documents, supporting documents, to prove the transactions are recorded properly and the organization is following a proper system of recording its financial transactions. Voucher means it is the evidence for any expenses incurred in the organization. It is a written record of whatever expenditure incurred in an organization, such as payment of traveling expenses or payment of printing and stationery. All these kind of expenses should have documentary evidence. That evidence is called voucher. It may be a kind of invoice, cash memo, purchase invoice, bank pay-in slip, or any other kind of a document prepared by the organization. Voucher means documentary evidence for any expenditure, whereas vouching means the physical examination of the vouchers by an auditor to check the authenticity of an expenditure incurred in the organization. The next one, salaries and wages. To verify salary or wages paid by an organization, the auditor should check attendance ratios, schedules, or any other kind of records maintained for this purpose. No payment is made to dummy workers has to be checked by the auditors. Sometimes some organizations they show just records of as for payments made to the employees as wages or salaries and all. Actually, such employees do not exist. They are called dummy workers. Then the mode of payment has to be verified, whether it is by check or cash or electronic transfer of cash, etc. Then the tax liability of the employees has to be checked, whether the organization has properly deducted taxes from the salaries of the employee or not. If loans and advances are given to the employees, it should be verified with proper records. If the loan is disbursed through bank accounts have to be checked. Then verification. The meaning of verification. Verification means a process to substantiate, that is to support the validity of assets and liabilities appearing in the balance sheet. Whatever assets and liabilities appear in the balance sheet of an organization should have supportive or evidence for their presence. According to ICAI, verification aims at establishing existence, ownership, possession, freedom from encumbrances, proper recording, and proper valuation of assets. Then the objectives of verification: to show the correct value of assets and liabilities, verification is carried out in order to know whether the balance sheet exhibits true and fair view of the state of affairs of the business. Then the next objective is to find out the ownership, position, and titles of the assets appearing in the balance sheet, and then to find out whether assets are in existence or not. Sometimes non-existent assets will be shown in the balance sheet. To detect that, verification is carried out. Then to detect frauds or errors, if any, while recording assets in the books of concern. Then to verify the arithmetic accuracy of accounts, to ensure that the assets have been properly recorded. Then management audit. Management audit means the examination, review of various policies and action of management on the basis of certain specified objectives. Management audit is independent examination of organizational structure, operation function, analyzing goals, plans, policies, activities, weaknesses, and evaluation of earning capacity of the management. Then objectives of management audit. Why management audit is carried out? Management audit is carried out to identify the defects or irregularities of management executives, to ensure the management is going to achieve the objectives, and then to help the management to do efficient administration of the operations, and then to suggest the management the way and means available to achieve the objectives in an efficient way, and then to improve profitability of the organization, to obtain or utilize the full efficiency of the management, and finally to help the management executives in effective discharge of their duties. Then the scope of management audit. What are the areas covered in management audits? Briefly, objectives, goals, plans, and policies of the management are audited. Then the results of various operations of the departments of the organization are audited. Then the planning process and appraisal of planning and utilization of finance and human resources are verified. Physical processes and activities of delegation of authority are audited, and rules and regulations and methods of fixing responsibility by management executives are also audited in management audit. Then purpose of management audit. Why management audit has to be carried out? What is the purpose behind it? It is mainly to inform the company about the total revenue generated on a day and how much the company is owed by the guests, both in-house and checked out, and producing operational and management reports. An effective management audit increases the probability of correct account settlement. Then energy audit. Energy audit is an inspection survey and an analysis of energy flow for energy conservation in the building. It may include a process or system to reduce the amount of energy output into the system without negatively affecting the output. Energy audit is an effective tool in defining and pursuing comprehensive energy management programs. And then it may be defined as a systematic, independent, and documented process for obtaining audit evidence and evaluating it objectively to determine the extent to which audit criteria are fulfilled. And then systems audit are usually carried out for the following objectives: to evaluate the organization system against a system standard. Already set standards are matched with the existing systems in the organization, and then to determine the conformity or non-conformity of the system elements with specified requirements, and then to determine the effectiveness of the implemented system in meeting the specified objectives, to offer an opportunity for improvement in the system to meet statutory and regulatory requirements. These are some of the objectives behind carrying out systems audit. Let us see few multiple choice questions in auditing. The first question is like this: the main object of audit is expression of opinion, detection and prevention of fraud and error, both A and B, depends on type of audit. Actually, the objective of an audit is expression of opinion and detection and prevention of fraud and error. So, the answer will be C, option C, that is both A and B. Then the next question: as per EAS 4, if auditor detects an error, then he should inform the management. Second option is he should communicate it to the management if it is material. The auditor should ensure financial statements are adjusted for detected errors. This cannot be an answer. The auditor should not do this. So the right answer for this question is both A and B. Then question number 3: which of the following is not a limitation of audit as per AAS 4? Option A, objectivity of auditor's judgment, selective testing, persuasiveness of evidence, limitations of internal control system. The right answer is option A, objectivity of auditor's judgment. He should be objective he should have unbiased approach towards auditing. Then how many principles are listed in AAS 1 which govern auditors' professional obligation? There are 9 principles. So the right answer is option A, 9. Then the next question: which of the following statement is not true? Valuation of assets is the responsibility of the management. The auditor can rely on a certificate issued by an authorized valuationer. The auditor should value the asset as per generally accepted accounting principles. This is the right answer here. The auditor should always ensure valuation of an asset based on generally accepted accounting principles. Analytical procedures are least likely to be used in the audit of dash cash balance, investment, bills receivable and debtors. Audit of cash balance is the right answer here. And then the next question: the independence of an internal auditor will most likely be assured if he reports to the managing director of the organization. So the answer will be option C. Then question number 8: when an independent auditor relies on the work of an internal auditor, he or she should examine the scope of internal auditor's work, examine the system of supervising, review and documentation of internal auditor's work, and then adequacy of a related audit program. So the answer will be option D, that is all the above. You should do all these things to ensure it. Then question number 9: the main objective of management audit are to help the management to do efficient administration of the operations, to suggest the management the way and means available to achieve objectives, to improve the profitability of the organization. All of these is the right answer. The objective of management audit are to help the management do efficient administration, to suggest the management the way available to achieve objectives, to improve the profitability. And then the next question: which of the following is not an objective of a system audit? Number one, to offer an opportunity for improvement in the system, to meet statutory and regulatory requirements, to improve the profitability of the organization, to evaluate organization system against system standard. Actually, the objective of system audit is to improve the profitability of the organization. Thank you for watching.